We're very excited this evening because we're going to be talking about communication, electronic communication, specifically websites with churches. We know that that's a challenge for a lot of churches in figuring out how they communicate electronically. And so Brenda Baker is here to share her experience in the development of the website at Grosvenor Park United Church. She sort of headed up that element for them. So I'm looking forward to asking Brenda for a number of sort of insights and questions, and she'll take us on a bit of a tour of their site as well. Now, it's a pretty cool website, so that's not a beginning starting point to say, here, just jump into this one, but it's pretty, there's some really good thought into that. Other people to introduce: Scott Douglas is program coordinator at the Center for Christian Studies in Winnipeg. Scott also has some information to share about information, but also some questions that are good questions to ask in that sort of initial development of websites based on his experience at the center. Another person to introduce as well is Alicia Munson. Alicia is a university student, but she was a student employee for the region over the summer who did some work on some website templates. The last thing we'll get to this evening is sort of talking about some template projects and sort of pilots that may be available. Now, recognizing that we are going to work really hard to abide by time frames, especially for Brenda, who has skipped out of another meeting in order to be here with us tonight. And so
council meeting tonight.
Well, in that case, you owe us for getting you out of the council
meeting.
Yeah,
I know, right? It's not such a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this, Brenda, because there's a lot of busy things, and in council is a very important thing. So what we'll do is we're going to sort of, we'll have time for questions for everyone as well. But what I've got is sort of a series of questions that I've talked through with Brenda, and we're going to go through some of those. And so most of them are going to go towards Brenda. I'm going to throw some towards Scott too, to get some insight into that. But Brenda's really the one who has the time frame. So we're going to get Brenda's stuff in here as much as we can before she has to step away. So Brenda, the first question is, can you just give us like a quick sort of overview of who are you? What's your involvement been with your church, and how did you get engaged in doing website development for them?
Well, thanks for inviting me to be here, Kent. I have been with Grosvenor Park United Church since I was born. I was baptized into that church. And I have been, as a young person, I went to Sunday school and so forth. In my adult years, for a while, living away from Saskatoon and also going on my own journey about whether or not church was right for me. I wasn't involved with church for a period of time. But when I came back to Saskatoon in 1990, having lived away for quite a few years, I very gradually got kind of sucked into the whole idea of church, and I'm obviously now very, very involved. As far as the website goes, I would have to say it's part of a much bigger project around communications. And I'll try to be short about this, but for some time we identified that we were running into problems as technology was changing, and we were struggling a bit with finding a way to have a website that was adequate, and also how to deal with social media and a number of other things around internal communications among members in the church and so forth. We decided, a few of us, that we needed to hold a conference for a weekend, in which our goal was to have long, deep discussions about what communications meant. And we invited people from outside of our congregation to come and speak to specific educational topics for our congregation to get a better grasp on what communication meant in this day and age. So that was in 2015. And that launched us into our first communications committee. And by 2016, we launched our website. So it was a long and kind of involved process of educating this committee, but also bringing the congregation along, because what we spent considerable money on different communications projects, and our website, we hired a professional, and it cost us about $6,000 to for the photography and for the website. But you know, here we are now in 2021, and our website holds up really well. And I'm sure that we'll have the same website for at least 5 more years, with the occasional change out of some photographs. And so when you think of what we spent initially, I think it was money well spent. So that's just a little bit of how we got to the point of having a website. We've done many other things regarding communications as well.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of connects with that. So what for you, what was the motivation to get involved in sort of the communication side of it? And you said, you know, I loved your phrase about sort of very slowly returning. I think that's a reality for a lot of people in all our faith journeys, is we fade in and out, and you know, there's different places that we get called to. What was it that called you into communication work for the church? What did you see?
Well, I am by trade a performing artist and a writer and self-employed. And I've spent my career not just writing songs and performing and getting gigs, but I had to promote myself. I had to market what I did. And I learned a lot about marketing because I had to market myself. And so what I saw around me at Grosvenor was a lot of amazing people doing really important work in the community, but having none of that skill set in the way that I developed it as an artist. And so my sense was that, how do we remain viable if we aren't telling our story beyond the walls of the church, so that people understand what our purpose is and might even be interested in coming and joining us in some of the important work that we do as a social enterprise. You know, we're just gonna wind up one day, and I suppose these people will go off to other places and do their good works. But there's something very unique about a church environment in which we come together as family and we encourage one another towards, you know, a spiritual well-being, but also doing what needs to be done locally and globally to make this world a better place. I just like the model of church. So I guess I decided that that would have to be part of my calling. I mean, I would love to be going off and doing some of the good work people do when they go and put in some time at the Friendship Inn, or they organize some kind of a special fundraiser for a particular nonprofit, which are types of things many people in our church do. But then who would do this other work? So I've really put about 90% of my volunteer time into trying to ensure that Grosvenor will go on as an entity, as a place for people to gather and do the work that they do and have the spiritual life that they have. And once that's stabilized and feels like it's got another 60 years ahead of it, then I will feel like my work has been done. And maybe then I can go and participate in some of those other kinds of projects that most of the other church members do. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it's, and I know it's going off some of the topics I was even asking you about earlier, but there's such a great image there of sort of the body of Christ, you know, different people having different roles and different understanding and different skill sets. And I appreciate you use the word marketing, and sometimes I think marketing and evangelism are different sides of the same coin. You know, different communities use the same word or different words for the same thing.
And early on in our learning about communication, we had a fellow who's recently become ordained minister at the Met in Toronto. His name's Jason Myers. He's originally from Outlook, Saskatchewan. And he also sees himself as somebody whose mission in part is to help churches to feel comfortable about communicating who they are, marketing themselves to the community, telling the story of what it is we're doing. And his phrase was, Christ was a communicator. Jesus Christ told stories, and through these stories brought people into the fold. So we need to follow that lesson, I think, and remember that we have stories to tell and ways to help people to not only to their own personal sort of spiritual development, but towards feeling strong, working together to bring about some of the changes that this justice happens when people come together and work on these kinds of projects together. And so I think if we stop balking at marketing and think of it as storytelling, it's very much in line with Christian theology.
Okay, well, that's a great sort of connection right into sort of the specifics of the website you've been working on as one component of that communication strategy. So the question to look at is what role have you determined, or did you sort through what role does the website play in that larger communication strategy and ministry and mission and everything that happens at Grosvenor Park?
Mm-hmm. Well, the website for many people is the first thing they see before they actually come in through our doors. So we thought of it as a place where there's the virtual doors that people are going to walk into our website and they're going to look around. And based on what they see on the website, they're going to decide if they're actually going to come to the real church through our doors and look around. So storytelling was really important. There's actual stories about some specific members of our church, little testimonials. So that's sort of literal storytelling. But we also made sure that we gave them the kind of theological information they might be looking for around what is our story as Grosvenor Park United Church, a bit about our history, a bit about our values, a bit about the way we work together. So depending on the page that you go to, and I can be more specific when we actually look at the website, the question we were asking ourselves is, what do we need to put there and why does it need to be there? And I think that's why we were able to build the website in such a way that it doesn't need constant changing, which was, it can be a problem. And I've built a few websites now for my own work. And you have to learn to write it in such a way that you don't have to continuously be going back to update it. Because now updated things happen on Facebook. So anything that's in the moment and, sort of the news of your congregation can happen on social media. But your website is the foundation. It's sort of the guts of your congregation. And it needs to have personality. It needs to actually feel like it's speaking to people. So the voice of the website is very important. These are some of the things that we were thinking about as we developed it.
Well, I have one more like this. I guess I have one quick question. I'm going to skip around a little bit here, just before, because I just wanted to go on a tour with you to have you sort of show us what you were, so you can illustrate some of the concepts you're talking about. This is great. Before we get into that though, as you were sort of working through this process, and it was, as you described, it was a fairly intensive process over a year or so. It was part of a bigger communication strategy. You had workshops and there was buy-in and everything from the congregation that had to happen. I'd assume there's some explanation that has to happen for folks who didn't necessarily understand that websites are the first step that people have towards going well before they go into the physical church. They're going to check out your website. Is there any wisdom that you would share with other congregations or other ministries as they're getting started? Were there things where it's like, yes, I would absolutely do this again, or I would never, ever, ever make that mistake ever again?
Right. Well, I think one of the things is that you get what you pay for. So, convincing a congregation to spend thousands of dollars on a communication strategy is not an easy thing to do, because at least in my experience, you have such a wide range of people in the congregation with such a diverse understanding of what communication actually means. This is why the education piece of what we did was so important, to give people an opportunity to come to an understanding of what is a visual identity, for example. So part of what we did besides the website was we had to come up with what is our three-leaf, people would call it a logo, we call it a visual identity, that also included the tagline that we came up with was faith grows with diversity, or diversity grows with faith. I can't, isn't that terrible? We'll soon see it. Then I'll be reminded which way it goes. Faith grows with diversity. That's what it is. Anyway, having a visual identity is very important as well, because that's what's going to go on all of your communication pieces. So we did that before we built the website. And it also guided us in terms of what is the story we're telling. Well, we wanted to ensure that our website was diverse. So that led us to making sure we had photographs that showed diversity in the website. In terms of wisdom, though, I think, I've said you get what you pay for, but you also, I'm loving what I'm hearing about a template. If it's possible to collaborate so that a number of churches can have a visually strong website. So you're sharing elements, this template, and you're going to, I imagine, tweak it to suit each individual congregation. I think that's a great idea, because another thing we had hoped to do at one point was to share resources with other churches, and maybe we could share a communications person who would work for several churches. The problem was that other churches weren't as far along as we were with what we were wanting to do. So we didn't end up collaborating with other churches. I think collaboration is would be a great thing if you can all agree on what it is that you want out of that collaboration. As far as what I wouldn't do, I guess in the website, I'm not excited about our calendar the way it ended up. It's labor intensive, and I'll show you what I mean when we take a look at it. It requires sort of a kind of constant updating, not just with information, but with photos. So it's a beautiful website. If you had a full-time or part-time communications person, and they could keep your calendar looking really pretty with all the photos that it requires, great. But I guess that would be one thing that I wish we had done differently. And next year, with all our renovations at Grosvenor, we'll be taking a whole new series of photographs, and we'll be updating it, just not the foundational pieces, what am I trying to say? Not the, I guess the template will stay more or less the same, but we can just slip in new photos and ta-da, we've updated. So that's kind of a cool thing about the way we designed it.
I appreciate that. That's especially the advice about sort of labor intensive, just, because I think it's fair to assume that the majority of our communities of faith and ministries are not going to have, anyone dedicated much more beyond volunteer time to be a communications coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. And that may be just to have realistic expectations about how long it takes to update these sorts of things. And I guess that's part of this whole conversation too, is how do we still communicate effectively, knowing that there may be limited resources and time. Thanks so much for mentioning that. That's really helpful, sort of just logistics, to think through. Well, what I'm really would love to do, if you're comfortable with this, Brenda, is, do you want to take us for a walk through and see if there are some things that you'd like to share with us? I know that we have, see if we can figure out how to share screens and all that sort of thing. There we go.
Okay. So if you want the full effect, I don't know if you've got, like I do, all the window boxes up the side of your screen. There is a way to collapse those so you can see the full website. So I'm going to collapse mine now. So I just see the website. And everyone should be looking at the, and remember what we're looking at is, I'm being told I'm running out of RAM. That's nice. Just a second here. This is the version you would see on a laptop, but when you create a template, you want it to look great on a phone. So by working with the designer that we did, he ensured that everything was designed so that never mind which device you're on, it's going to look great.
Why is that, Brenda?
Why do you want to do it that way?
Yeah. Why is it important for it to look good on a phone too? Can you like?
Well, for sure. It needs to look good, period. Let's just start there. With my understanding from the marketing research I've done, is that you have just several seconds to impress the person who comes to your website. So it needs to be impactful, because your competition is everything else that individual is going to see on their phone in that day. And it's image rich, and it is, there's so much compelling stuff, or even just what we call clickbait. There's so much competition out there for people's eyeballs. So you want to make sure that your website is going to grab people's attention. And that's what we had hoped we would have here. And whether it's on a phone or it's on a screen the size of a laptop, you want people to be drawn into the photograph. And we felt that with this photograph, with obviously there are some adult arms in the background, but there's a child's hand holding a growing plant. And that's a very simple idea, but it's kind of poetic, because it doesn't, come out in an overt way. Like we could have had an image, say, that's a plant with a whole bunch of different colors on the plant or something to show diversity, but it would be a lot more in your face. A lot of the things we're doing are very subtle and beautiful. So when you scroll down on our website, then you come to Nabucco, our minister, and you get information in very small chunks. And that's the other thing, is what is the most critical information that you need to give in the first few seconds that somebody looks at your website. I'm going to scroll back and say, there's our slogan, faith grows with diversity, right away. And if I wanted to, I could click on experience us from there, and I could go to a whole bunch of information about the things like our mission and our vision. And maybe I'll come back to that, because I'm trying to remember all the different things that happen when you click on things. Sundays at 10 o'clock a.m., Saskatoon Church near the university. We had a person work with us, making sure that what they did was they audited. She was a professional website developer, different person to the guy we hired to make the website. And she just went through and it's called SEO audit, which is just to make sure that all the right words are in the right places. And she was the one who said, you want people to know where you are, and everyone knows where the university is. And so you're going to say you're near the university, and right away they can establish your location. And then here we have some children and folks playing in the dirt, Sunday school, and great programs for all ages. That was another thing we wanted people to know right away, because that's the kind of thing families are looking for. And then our own voices, our own stories. this is where, if you click from here, you'll go to the testimonials of several people who are members at Grosvenor Park United. And then here, spirit-led transformation. So it's a comment about what people will get out of the church if they're looking for spiritual leadership. So down at the bottom here, you can sign up for our newsletter. You can go to Facebook, you can go to YouTube, you could go to our members access. I won't get into that tonight because there's not really time, and you can donate to the church. So let's go back here. Let's do it this way. So let's say you decide you want to go to Experience Us. You click that. That's interesting. I wonder if there's something about, oh, there we go. Sorry. All right. So Experience Us before COVID, let's pretend COVID never happened. Let's just keep that right.
We all want to hope that, yeah.
Yeah. So, because that was just a blurb about what's going on with COVID. But in the non-COVID days, you would have come to this page where it's all about joining us on Sundays, because that's the core of what we do, or the central piece that people are looking for. And so we just quickly tell it people when it happens and who's welcome. Everyone's welcome. And then you can click away to the United Church of Canada to Affirm United. There's a driving map, a parking map, an accessibility map. Here's what happens on a first Sunday visit. If you're new, these are like a fact, frequently asked questions kind of idea going through there. That's just to make people feel at ease about coming to our services and what our worship is like, what our music is about. And if you're looking about because of life events, baptism, confirmation, weddings, funerals. So all of that is in that one place that is, Experience Us. And I'm going to go back. I'm not going to be able to show you everything, but I'm just going to try and give you a taste of this, because you can go and look on your own. We want you to be able to find us. So there's a picture of the church. That's what we look like. Here's where we're located. If you need to get in touch, you can email us, you can phone us, you can put in a prayer request, subscribe to our newsletter. If you need the parking or accessibility maps, they're there. And if you're looking for us to donate, it's there. Our church council is there. And we also have all of our staff listed here. So I'll go back. Let me know if this is going on too long, because you might have some questions. Let's see what happens at Discover Us. Maybe this will be this is just about all our programs. So on the left column, it's the different age groups. And then all the different programs and possibilities for, and I'll do one last one, and then maybe I'll stop there. This one's kind of important. Meet us. So here's where we chose, I think, 5 people, and we got professional pictures done that same day. We did all our photos in one day that you're seeing here. They're completely all done in one day. And we need to update because one of these people, unfortunately, Peggy, has passed away, and Mark has moved. Mark is around, but he's not as active anymore. And the new thing we're doing on this page is we've just videotaped 5 new people on our rainbow steps in front of the church doing testimonials. So our next testimonials will be done in video with people speaking, as well as a small written thing. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah.
And gives you.
Yeah, Brenda, I mean, that's the helpful thing is, I mean, we've been able, that gives us a very quick overview, like, and we didn't get into all the depth of it, but it gives everybody a chance to go and check it out as well, to sort of dig a little deeper into those pieces. And having your insight, like, sort of giving some information about why those decisions were made to put the pieces where you put them. That's really helpful. Like, and I mean, there's a thousand, there's billions of websites out there. There isn't one specific way to do it, but it's really helpful to hear what some of the decisions are that people have done. That, you know, there's a whole bunch of effective websites. Grosvenor Parks is one of them. So what was the decision-making process? That's been really helpful, Brenda. Now, like I said, I want to be really respectful of your time. It's been so helpful to get all of this information from you. Do you have a couple of minutes for people to ask questions or anything?
They'll wait for me at the council meeting. It'll be okay.
Oh, okay. That sounds great. I guess, does anyone have questions about any of the process or specifics or anything that came out of Brenda's presentation so far? Maybe we get you off to your council meeting faster than we thought, but
Brenda, I'm just wondering, have you had people sort of report to you or tell you how, if the website has sort of helped them, how it's helped them both within the church and also sort of outsiders finding their way through I mean, some people describe the website as the porch to the church. Like, have you had any feedback about that throughout the years?
Yeah, I love that, the porch to the church. That's a great way of thinking about it. And we have had people tell us that they've come because of the website. And also, we now have a place we can send people to if they're curious about our church. And for me, it just happened a couple of weeks ago. I met someone who actually came into my life because of Kids of Note. And she's going to be our new administrator with the choir, actually. So I took her to Grosvenor, which is all in a shambles right now, but I wanted her to see where Kids of Note performs. And I didn't know she was looking for a church. But after she saw the church and heard a little bit about it through the Kids of Note story, she went off and checked out our website. And based on that, she asked me a bunch of questions, and she's very, very interested in who we are as church, because, you know, we couldn't be church because of pandemic plus our renovation. So she couldn't actually come and see us. But the power of a good website is that she got a pretty clear idea that this was a church that connected with her.
I've been asking you so many questions, so I want to leave it open if other people have questions, but I have one if nobody does. All right, I'm jumping in. There's all these different elements, and it's you've got a balance of practicality, like here's where we are, here's our phone number, you know, here's our service times, and then you've got some sort of the mission communication type stuff as well. What's your favorite part of the website? Well, like what is the part where you look at that and think, I am really pleased that this turned out the way it did? This is a reflection of who we as a community of faith are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the photos speak volumes. They're all really strong, and they show people of diversity, and they are high-end photos. You honestly, you cannot have a website with poor photos. We're just getting so used to seeing beautiful imagery, and I'm a visual artist. My background at university was a Bachelor of Fine Arts in visual art. And so the way that visual art has been integrated more and more into cinematography, into photography, into all kinds of websites. I mean, we're just exposed to beauty so much now. We really, some of us won't understand why we turn away from something that's uninteresting to us, because we might not be so visually literate. But those of us who understand visual literacy can identify that the reason you turn away from something is it doesn't please you. So when you're choosing photographs to put on your website, you need to pick the very, very best, most interesting, most colorful photographs. They might not be colorful, maybe they're black and white, but they're really strong images that are going to be compelling. So just because someone in a congregation, this has happened to us, start sending you pictures shot in your badly lit basement hall of a bunch of people at potluck, it doesn't mean you should use them. We actually happened to have some potluck pictures that were taken, because we planned everything. The day of our photographs, we had all these activities going on, so the photographer could just go around and get all these terrific shots of different types of activities in one day. And they're actually quite rich looking. They're not, I'm still not as excited about those photos as I am with some other photographs, but that would be the thing that I love the most, is the photographs. Second would be those stories, people telling their personal testimonial stories, because they're so from the heart, and they're very short, and they really, each one says something different about the church. So trying to avoid repetition, trying to give something new in each piece of writing that you do, I think would be other bits of advice, if you will, that I would give.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm just hearing descriptions and comparisons of websites and art, and thinking of the sort of the classic, the art of the sanctuary, visuals as part of our worship experience. Now it's translated into the electronic realm of websites, but it's the same sort of concept of something that inspires the spirit, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And on the practical side, I was thinking to what you said about the benefit of social media. That's a great place to dump those pictures of potlucks.
That's exactly right. It's just going to zoom by really quick.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can still find a picture of your grandma if you want to, but you don't have to look at it every day as the front page of the website. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I did just get a little text from my sister saying I should be going to the other meeting, that they're ready for me now. But I see there's a question.
Leah just threw one up. What, if any, objections did you run into as you were developing the website?
I'm not sure that we had objections so much as we had to do a lot of convincing of people some people, not that nobody got it. Some people got what we were talking about, but when we decided to hire a professional to do our visual identity plus our website, and it was going to cost like the $6,000, and that is an outrageous amount of money for a church. It's true, but we were able to manage it, and I don't think anybody regrets it. I think everyone's really proud of the website, and like I said, if you consider that it will probably be our website for at least another 5 years, that's $6,000 over 10 years, so because it was done right. If we had done it wrong, then maybe in 3 or 4 years we would be starting all over again, trying to develop a website that's going to look modern enough for the time.
Awesome. Yeah. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Or I wish I could stay, because I'd like to hear what Scott has to say.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, this is going to be an ongoing discussion. We're throughout the region. This is going to be a priority for a number of different places. I think some of the what you talked about is in terms of sharing resources. We need. There's no reason that we have to redevelop the wheel all over and over for every community of faith. We can learn from each other, both learn from mistakes and maybe come up with some what's best practices for these sorts of things too. So
Yeah, and I can check out the video and catch what everybody else says later on too.
Sure.
So let me know when the video's ready and I'll do
You
that.
bet. You bet. Thanks,
Okay.
Brenda.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
You bet.
Bye.
So for the next part of it, this is the part where I wanted to bug Scott. So Scott Douglas is at, like we said before, is at Center for Christian Studies. Scott has had a lot of hands-on with website development for the center, and he also brings an artistic eye, but also a writing perspective in terms of communication pieces. And I'm assuming he's going to sort of hinge on or touch on some of those things. So what I'll do is I'm going to put Scott now in the spotlight. I can ask you some nice questions too, Scott. Can you just give us a quick rundown on sort of what your role is at the center, and then how that connects with some of the communication and websites development as well?
Sure. Hi, it's really nice to be here. I have been at the center for about 13 or 14 years, and I was originally hired as an administrative role for the program, the education program at the center, and I think I was hired on the basis of my typing skills, and the fact that I, in my interview, said that I knew a little bit of HTML. Which is code language for making websites, and they kind of perked up and said, "Oh, maybe you could do the website too." So I've been kind of looking after the website for 10 or 12 years, and it's gone through a number of changes over that time. But I think that I've realized fairly quickly that part of what the website was about was to convey the voice of the center, and we heard a bit of that too from Brenda about what's the voice, what's the feel that you get. So it's not just here's the information, but it's what would it be like to be there? Who are the people that are behind this website? What's their sense of humor? What's their theology like? Will I feel comfortable there? To be able to convey those kind of things became really, really important really early. I've also helped out at Emmanuel United Church in Winnipeg in setting up their website. And when we started that, we looked at the Grosvenor Park website, and we said, hey, we really like that. One of the things I really, you can tell from looking at that website, the Grosvenor Park one, that they've had intentional conversations, that they've thought through what they want to do and why they want to do it. And so that's really my kind of encouragement. I mean, I come from a playwriting background, so I guess my, bouncing off the two things, find the artists in your group and give them the job of looking after the website. But also, I think it really helps the congregation to have those kind of deep conversations about what are we trying to say, what do people need to hear, what do we want that front porch to be like. And I think that's, I mean, both in a practical, strategic kind of way, but I think it also helps congregations to understand who they are and what they're about. I think they're really important conversations. Does that answer your question, Kent?
Yeah. And it kind of brings another question. So what did those, when you were sort of engaging in those initial conversations, what did those conversations look like? Like what is your starting point to even have that conversation?
Well, it's a slightly different thing for CCS, for the Center for Christian Studies, as it was for Emmanuel Church, which is a congregation. So we were kind of thinking about what do people need to know about the congregation. With the center, we already had a website, and it had pretty sprawling kind of website, had lots of information, and for different people. And so part of that was just trying to corral it all into something that made sense. So I think one of the first pieces of conversation or questions to be asking is, who is this for? Who's this website for? And there may be a number of different answers to that question, and that's fine. That's great. And sometimes those answers come into conflict with each other. And so then it's really useful to kind of have thought through your priorities. Is this a website for our congregation, to keep people who are in the congregation informed about announcements and what's going on? Is it primarily for people who are potential newcomers? They'll have different questions. They'll be looking for different things. Is it for the wider society or the wider church? People, maybe people who aren't going to be coming to your congregation, but that you want to be engaging in some sort of conversation. So maybe you're posting discussions or videos or resources that other people will kind of use, and will make them think or engage them, but not necessarily get them through the door. If that's not, if your purpose is something other than just getting people into your physical building, or maybe part of your audience is donors. That do you have a place on your website for people to kind of support you? So having thought through those helps you to kind of set some of those priorities, because different people within your congregation or within your group will have different priorities themselves. And so if you haven't had the conversation as a group, someone from finance is going to be saying, hey, can you put a big flashing thing on that front page that says we need to raise $10,000 for the whatever campaign? Meanwhile, someone from the Sunday school is saying the kids need to know that, bring your Play-Doh on Sunday. Can you put that front flashing? You can only have so many things flashing before people have seizures. So having thought through, okay, well, we could put that there, but for someone if this is your first time, if you're just checking out, trying to decide, that big flashing give us money thing, that maybe is not the first message we want to have. So that's one of the things I really like about the Grosvenor one, is they thought through what are the key messages, what are the first things that people need to see.
Great. Okay. At some point, I wonder, can you do a little tour of some pieces of your website too that you think are really effective? We don't have, I think what I'd like to do first though is I want to throw the same question to you that we gave to Brenda. Like obviously you've already touched on some really helpful advice. What's the biggest screw up that you've encountered in website development over website or in communication stuff? Like they kind of go hand in hand.
I don't know if I'm not sure if it's a screw up, but it's a thing that I worry about or think a fair bit about. I think it's really useful and important to have some integration between your website, which may be fairly static, as Brenda was sort of saying, we made it, we set it up, and now we don't have to update it constantly. We can have our social media stuff doing that. But it's good to have those connected so that people are finding their way to your website. If your website has got information that's going to invite them deeper into something. One of the things I worry about, and I think we know this, is what's sometimes called the attention finance complex. The economy of the internet and the economy of social media is kind of driven by attention. That it runs on people watching things that they can then sell to advertisers and say, okay, these people watched it and here's some data on them. And so for me, that feels really dangerous. But if we're creating websites and we're entering into that world, I think we really need to be thoughtful about, okay, what's our relationship to the powers and principalities of this system? And so you're talking about kind of what's a screw up. I'm not sure if it's a screw up, but I can sometimes slip into thinking about the success of the website in the language of how many hits did we get, and some of that kind of stuff, which I think feeds into we just need to get more eyeballs on our stuff, which is not really serving us or our mission, is really serving somebody else. I don't know.
That's
Did that get
yeah,
kind
no,
of nefarious and
yeah, no, that's a great word of caution.
Yeah.
Like I think that's because I think that's an, a very common conversation is happening within the church as we're talking about communication and the empire of social media, but we have to be signed up to the empire in order to communicate. It is a balance and a challenge to try to keep those things straight in terms of our theological identity and our goals and purpose. That's a helpful caution, Scott. Thanks for naming that.
yeah, and kind of knowing what your goals are can help to kind of keep you on the rails.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, are you cool to give us a little?
Oh, well, sure. Let's.
No, I don't know if there's anything specific that it can just be helpful to sort of.
Yeah, you can just see what it's like, and you can.
Just to help to illustrate some of the what you were talking about is your personality of the place. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this is this is where you drop in to the website, and so I'll say that this website runs on a WordPress install. So the Grosvenor Park website, they went to a designer who designed everything for it. We downloaded the WordPress software, which is kind of open source, and we've installed it on our website. And there are templates that we can find. So I found a template which is kind of the general shape that I kind of like. I kind of go through a lot of templates and going, okay, I'm looking for a particular kind of thing. Does this give me that feel? And then the other option is you can look at something like WordPress.com or some other websites that are you just plug in their information and it will look after all the other background stuff. So what we've got is that somewhere in between where we have the software that's installed on our server, which means that I can get into the background and I can change things as they go along. So this is where we drop into our page. This is a picture from one of our graduation services. It's just kind of the table center and the church. It's pretty simple, but it kind of gives you some signals right off the bat. That rainbow candle sort of says, okay, well, maybe this, if you were looking for a place that was going to be affirming, that might be your clue that this is going to be an affirming place. We've got some buttons really handy that if you're here to be a student or you're thinking about being a student, this will take you right to the program stuff. And if you're here to give us money, this will take you right to that too. In terms of updating, we have a whole bunch of the website that is that's kind of, we created it and it's just going to stay there because it's got our information about how everything works, and we have some things that change like yearly. These are the courses, and then we have some stuff that changes, that's kind of new every month. And so we have stories, so it's a bit like a blog. And the reason that we do that is because I think sometimes if a website is just sort of the same way all the time, once you've looked at it, that's great. You don't feel like you need to go back. But if you want people to kind of come back, then you need to put some new things on it every once in a while to make it worthwhile. So we have different stories, articles, reflections that come up every month. And we do an e-newsletter where we send out some information, but it also has links back to these stories. So it's drawing people back here. And if you're looking at one of these stories, you may also then kind of, your eye may drift over to the sidebar. I like sidebars. I think they're falling out of favor in terms of design, but I like them. I fall over, your eye might fall over the side here and go, oh, there's something about right relations. What's that about? And you can click on it and it will take you to the information about this learning circle that we have coming up in October.
Nice plug. Good job.
Exactly. This is my, I've earned my something here. Yeah, so I like a sidebar because that you can find that stuff, no matter what page you're on. And we've got, so pretty much any website you're going to create or will have some sort of a navigation thing, often a menu bar. So really, I think useful to kind of think about what's the organization of your website, what's going to be the easiest way to get, because you can't have everything right on that first page, what's going to be the easiest way for people to find what they're looking for, knowing that different people are looking for different things. We have a section of our website that is things about like what is diaconia, and it's got essays and articles and videos. So that stuff doesn't, we maybe add things to it every once in a while, but it is mostly just kind of there as informational resources if you want to know more about the background. And we have a bunch of stuff on our programs. And this is where you'll also kind of find the news things that are scrolling by there. Anything particular you want to look at, Kent, or is that kind of give you just a sense of
I don't think so. No, I don't think so, Scott. It was mostly
Okay,
just to get a, get a sense of what, like I said, there's so many different ways to be effective in a website ministry, and it's great to see some of the different visuals. Like it's a different visual than what Grosvenor Park used. Yeah,
and we haven't. What Brenda was saying about good photography, that's really useful, but you don't always have that. So sometimes you work with what you've got.
Yeah. Well, and it's a bit of a like. Sorry, Sean. I'll just mention one thing. Like you mentioned WordPress, and we'll get into that after in about 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so. That as a format lends itself to sort of blogging and updates and that sort of thing. Yeah. As you pointed out, as opposed to the other websites might be more static just because there's more effort that sort of goes in. They're not designed specifically to be updated that quickly.
Yeah. So I think when you're having those kind of conversations, one of the questions, or a couple of questions are, how much control are you going to want to have? So in the Grosvenor Park one, they had a designer design kind of the basic shape of it, which is really great and lovely. But if they decided they wanted it to be different, it'll be tricky for them to change that. They can change content, they can change pieces in that, but if they wanted the structure and the shape of it to change, it will be a bit harder for them to get in there and do that. On my website, I can go in and I can make some big changes, but that's an investment in time. So it's also about how much time are you willing to give, and do you have the kind of techie skills or resources to do that stuff. And so it's sometimes a bit of a trade-off too. It's like, I really want everything, but I don't want to pay the money for it, and I don't want to put the work into it. You have to make some choices sometimes.
So I cut off Sean, but does Sean or anybody else, are there other questions for Scott to sort of raise at this time?
Leah says, Scott, I really want to know what the rest of your shirt says.
Oh.
That is the quote of the year.
Yeah.
Scott, I had a question for you. Thinking about, because you were talking about photos, and Brenda was also referencing photos, and it is something that, especially as people start to create their own local websites and stuff, you do, whether they're professional photos or what you're snapping off your camera. What about privacy? Especially as we take photos of people in our own congregations, our own communities, our own schools. How do you handle that?
I think that's a really great question. I was gonna raise that one, and I think that it bears conversation, and I think it bears, as you're moving into a website, having the conversation and making some decisions about where you're going to do it. So different people or churches will make different choices. So some will say we don't want to have any pictures of people for privacy reasons. That seems I can understand that choice. The problem is, I would find visually it creates a sense that you've got a building that has no people in it. And if you're trying to invite people into community, it's hard to kind of create that sense without some people. Some people will sort of say, okay, we're going to take pictures, but we won't have pictures of children. And again, I think that's a reasonable and kind of a good ethical choice. But also, again, sometimes then do we create the impression that there are no children here? Some congregations will say, we're going to take pictures, but we're going to get written permission from everyone who shows up. And that's, I think that's a good process. You kind of have to keep on it. It's really easy to kind of go, okay, well, I took the picture, but I didn't go around to get the. And then I guess another option is to sort of say, hey, I'm here. I'm going to be taking some pictures today. If you don't want your picture taken or you don't want to appear in pictures, let me know, and I'll go through afterwards and I'll make sure that I don't use any of the pictures. So just kind of thinking it through beforehand and having a strategy. I know that there are enough different ways of handling it that I wouldn't want to say this is the right way.
Thanks. Well, it's that uncomfortable silence. So I expect that sort of, as we were saying with Brenda, like this is an ongoing conversation, and I think there's a lot of communities of faith and ministries and organizations that are just trying to figure this stuff out. They whether they have a website or not. It may be a website that was sort of put together without knowing that there's this thought process behind it, and nothing or having something is sometimes better than nothing. So having a PDF up that on a website that says this is where we are, this is our contact information, and this is when we meet on Sundays.
Yep.
You know what? Maybe that's a starting point. It's a step above a fax machine. So
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with, if you're not sure what you want yet, starting small, starting simple, starting cheap, with the idea that once you kind of get further into it, you can kind of go, okay, now I know what we want to do. I would say I think an important question is to ask, what do people need? To separate that from what do you want to tell them, because sometimes it's not the same thing, and sometimes I think that's a place where churches can go off the rails too. Of, we've got this stuff that we want to tell you, without stopping to ask, what do you want to hear? What do you need from us?
That's an excellent comment, Scott. Thank you for raising that. And it actually kind of transitions perfectly into the last part of our evening here. I'm going to take Scott off the spotlight, and I don't know if there is going to be any spotlight. For the last, what do we got? 15 minutes of the conversation here. I just want to provide a little bit of information about a pilot project that we've been working on, and I introduced Alicia earlier. Here, you know what? We'll spotlight Alicia. Hi, Alicia. Can you smile and say hi? There, perfect. Nice work.
Hello.
So Alicia was our summer student working for the region. Alicia it's interesting because we were talking about the importance of artists involved in this communication strategy. Brenda brought it up, Scott brought it up. Alicia is an artist and a musician. She's also a computer geek, and that's an amazing combination of skills to put together. So Alicia came, or we begged Alicia to join us. Over the summer, we developed a project where the concept was to develop a template for congregational websites. And so we used a WordPress format, similar to what Scott was talking about. It's a pretty open source. It's very commonly used for a variety of different websites and blogs. That website template, the concept was, we build sort of a framework of well done. It's a well done framework. It's not exceedingly complex. We had the concepts that we went into it with were, we want it to be relatively simple to use. We wanted to have the basics of information, and sort of drawing exactly on what Scott said. We want to start off relatively inexpensive so that people can get the basics for a a reasonable outlay of financial investment without having to make a major financial investment, so they could get the basic information on the website, so they could have some sort of a web presence, and then figure out later if they want to grow and get more complex and look at more details and start adding in whatever pieces need to go with that. So Alicia developed a template that could then be adapted for each individual congregation. They could add their own images. They could add their own sort of who are we, put some thought into that intentionality of how we want to present ourselves, and what people might need to hear from us. So what I would like to do at this point is I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on Alicia to suddenly tell us a whole bunch of things. But what I'd like to do is just share a couple of the websites that have been guinea pigs for this process, because what we would like to be able to offer for the rest of the region is to have a couple more guinea pigs come on. We've got a program set up so that basically the region has a hosting account, so that other websites can actually sign on to the region's hosting account. So individual congregations just pay their hosting fee, but they're hosted on the region's account. They still have their independent website, but it's on the central hosting account. And the same thing would work with, I'm going to lose some of the words here, Alicia, so I'm going to count on you.
I was
It's
just going to say, it's a
domain
hosting
registration.
Fee. Yeah, domain registration fee.
Okay.
You pay it yearly once a year, and it's like $8 or $9. And then there's also a one-time SSL security fee. So you have a secure server, so everything is protected.
Right. And so these are not huge dollar figures.
Yeah.
Like it was like $25 by the time we were all done. Is that right?
Yeah, the hosting fee is $8.99, and that may fluctuate a bit because that tends to happen. There's sales and there aren't sales. And then the hosting fee or the security fee is like $11.95. So that this was sort of the concept, is that we were trying to find a very, very cost-effective way for people to have a basic website. And when I say basic, I just mean it has the important stuff. There may be some possibilities that we're exploring down the road. Is we may even be able to find 2 or 3 people who could be like a tech support team. And I'm not offering their support services for free. I'm suggesting that there may be some support people who could help like update information or upload initial information, sort of help you take this template and add, say, the descriptions of the church or some pictures of congregational events, whatever it is, just some of that content management stuff. And just sort of contract those people for a reasonable fee. But I mean, these are people, some of them are doing that as part of their professional job, but it's not in that thousands of dollars type of range yet, because it gives you a starting point. It's just dipping your feet in to figure out what might be possible. So that might be something we're able to look at as well down the road. So it's very early in the stages here. But what I want to show you is we have 3 guinea pig groups. Leah, who was here just previously, and Valerie are with St. Andrew's United Church in Lumsden. They're one of our guinea pigs. And then the hospital chaplaincies were also the guinea pigs. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you. Could I just kind of say some of my background stuff as you're like
oh yeah, absolutely, go for it.
Because who knows, I'm just a floating head. So I'm Alicia, and I am actually a Presbyterian. Oh no, kick her out now. Oh yeah, no, I'm a Presbyterian. I also work for Camp Christopher, so I do have United ties, and I also am a member of the United Church of Canada. So I'm Camp Christopher's web developer, and I'm probably at some point going to be St. Andrew's Presbyterian's web developer as well, or like web updater person.
Great.
I wouldn't say developer because they have a nice website already.
Thanks, Alicia. And I guess, there were phrases as we've been going through that come up a lot. Intentional conversations, like we'd already talked about the importance of artists having a visual sort of image or a visual or a
literary ability to communicate. That's an important piece. But intentional conversations were something that Alicia took part in as well, in meeting with all of the different groups. So this first one that comes up is the hospital chaplaincies. So this is the website developed. This is the template, so you can see it, and it's almost, you know what, I'll skip back and forth here. I'm going to show you St. Andrew's United Church in Lumsden. You can see it's almost an identical template in terms of the layout, but the imagery has changed depending on what the ministry is. I'll jump down here, and the messages down here are changed, but you can see it's similar sort of. Here's our front page. Here's who we are. Here's our toolbar and sort of drop downs of the different things to know about us. And that can change depending on what the congregation or ministry is. This is the chaplains. So they talk, these are sort of images of the various places that the chaplains are working in Regina and Saskatoon. You scroll down and you find a little bit of information about the about us for the chaplaincies, and the contact information for in the conversations with the chaplaincies, the specific one, they thought the important stuff that people are looking for is our contact. When it comes down to it, I'd like to find somebody to come visit me in the hospital, or visit a family member in the hospital, or learn more about support for particularly people in medical distress. So that contact information. But then there's the opportunity to talk about the stories that Scott and Brenda both talked about. Information about sort of the news stuff. You know, COVID obviously is a big thing for the hospital chaplaincy. So the ability to update that quickly is important. So those are, you know, it's like I say, it's not, I don't want it to sound simple. There's a lot of work that went into this, but the concept is to focus on simplicity at this point for communities of faith. If you don't have a website presence and all you can do is put up this page, now you have a website presence. And here, maybe I'll look at St. Andrew's. You have a website presence. You can say, here's where we add the line about worship. So we're going to put the worship time right here. Alicia has done a great job of laying this out within the template. Say, here's what you got to put in here. Now, don't worry. This website isn't there. There's still some work being developed before it's, you know, everybody's talking about it. But these are the pieces that you just sort of add in that are sort of rudimentary for places. And as people talked about, one of the pieces that websites offer is the chance for people to make donations without putting money in the offering plate. You can donate and support any ministry you want across the country if you can find their website and find their donate to us button. So people who have grown up at St. Andrew's United Church, if there's an appeal to send $50 to St. Andrew's United Church from Nova Scotia, they can do it just by pushing this button and getting it there. There's something to be said for that. With ministries like the chaplaincies, that's another opportunity to support the chaplaincies. So there may be ways that folks who may not be United Church members, may not have any connection to church, but had a wonderful experience with the chaplain who helped guide their grandmother through her last days. This is a way to say, geez, I really respect that ministry. I want to support that. Here's a chance to do that. That would not be available to them if it wasn't for a website. That's the quick spiel about this project. Alicia, I just wanted you to be here because I wanted to say thank you for all the work that you put onto this. I really don't, I certainly appreciate everything you've done. This is just getting up and going. So as we pass the word around the region, I hope that this concept gets spread further. Like the idea of churches having to go out and fight their own battles to develop their own websites and figure out who the best web designers are and who's good and who's cheap and who they can afford and what questions should be asked. There's got to be a way to share some of our experiences together, so we don't all have to start from scratch.
Like one kind of interesting thing to be a note about this, I haven't really had any conversations about it because I'm currently on vacation from working at the Presbyterian Church because I worked the entire summer, but I actually am gonna be contracted most likely to go and do our presbytery's website because they don't have a strong website presence, so they need one. So there's already talk about that, and I'm still currently doing website updates for the camp as well. And actually I use the camp as a kind of a model for this website. So yeah, that's fun. And I was going to say, also, and Kent has access to these, but there are about 10 videos that I created that are a step-by-step process on how to like set up the website. So I made a full tutorial set on them as well.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I had that on a list somewhere in my head, and I totally forgot that, Alicia. Yes. Yeah, it's a really detailed, and that's the concept. We want this package to be as accessible as possible. So there's a bunch of step-by-step videos. Like I said, I think we still need to find some geeks who can sort of be a team to help implement it for some folks. But yeah, we do have a lot of resources there to work on that. I don't know if there's any. I don't want to throw Alicia not under the bus. I don't want to throw stuff on Alicia here. But does anybody have questions about this general project, either for me or for her? My intention is to be sharing this pretty far and wide over the next bit. I don't want to dive out and say anybody that wants to be interested, anybody that's interested, send it all in. I want to make sure that it's working properly. The process is working properly, not the website. The process is working properly. But I'm hoping that folks that don't have websites now, or that would like to look at a different format for a website, that they can take advantage of something like this. We can work in community on that.
One of the things that I'm really noticing when I'm connecting with especially smaller rural communities, but not only, even some urban churches that are just small and don't seem to have a lot of energy or budget, they're defaulting only to a Facebook page. And a Facebook page is good for just getting your announcements out and doing that sort of thing. But I struggle when I'm trying to get a sense of who they are just through their Facebook page. And I think even having this basic template would just be a really good step in the right direction. So I really want to commend you guys for putting that together. I think it's going to be a great tool for for communities of faith that want to take that step.
Thanks, Sean. That's the hope, right? Well, I'm looking at the clock. Mine says 8:28. So we shoot for 8:30 and we usually make it. So unless anyone has any sort of final questions or things, and you know what, it should be an open invitation. Please, this video will be posted up on YouTube within the next few days. There's contact information to get in touch with me as well. So yeah, I just want to keep this conversation going and sharing resources. This is a ministry conversation. Like we got to learn how to communicate in new and exciting ways. Hearing no other sort of comments, if you're comfortable, I would be pleased to turn to Sean and say, would you like me to share this blessing that you pulled up, Sean? Or
I think that would be a great way to end the night, especially as we move into towards the first National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So yeah, and thanks, Kent, for putting this all together.
Well, if you could take a moment as we started, just take a bit of a breath. We offer these words: Holy One, Creator of all that is, seen and unseen, of story and of song, of heartbeat and of tears, of bodies, souls, voices, and all relations. You are the God of all truth and the way of all reconciliation. Uphold with your love and compassion
all who open their lives in the sacred sharing of their stories. Breathe in us the grace to trust in your loving forgiveness, that we may face our histories with courage. Touch us through the holy gift of story, that those who speak and those who listen may behold your redeeming presence. Guide us with holy wisdom to enter through the gates of remorse, that our feet may walk gently and firmly on the way of justice and healing. Amen. Blessings to you all. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Good night, all.
Thanks, folks.